Okay, I'm going to call our meeting of June 9th to order. At this meeting, the commission will hold hearings on notices of intent, requests for determination of applicability. The commission will also be voting on decisions, then taking up other business. No hearing times have been assigned to the specific agenda items, and the commission will take them up in the order they are listed. Discussion and action items may be taken up at any time. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order, suspending provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting online. The commission welcomes participation in the meeting by the applicants and general public. Attending the meeting tonight are 7 Conservation Commission members: Eric Foley, Margaret Wheeler, Jim Gozzo, Ann Jeffries, Marilyn Frank, Noel Donovan, and Peter Mahler, and the Conservation Resource Planner, Matt Salem. This meeting is being recorded by Westford Cable Access TV. We respectfully ask that everyone mute their computer microphones and phones when not in use to avoid unnecessary noise during the meeting. This is an open meeting, so all panelists will have access to the chat panel. Please only use chat for technical issues related to the video conference. The commission will proceed by opening the agenda items, having the applicant or the representative present the project, or if previously opened in a public meeting, they will provide a brief summary of the project. The commission and staff will follow with questions, and then we'll open up to the public for questions and comments. At this point, if you wish to participate, you will raise your hand and your microphone will be unmuted for you to participate. Due to the limitations of the platform, attendees that are accessing the meeting via the telephone number at the top of the agenda will only be able to listen to the proceedings and will not be able to contribute. Please access the video conference via the link on the agenda, even if you do not have a webcam to participate. I'll take a roll call. Margaret.
Present.
Eric.
Here.
Jim.
Here.
Marilyn.
Here.
Noel.
Here.
Ian.
Here.
And Peter. Okay, our first agenda item is open forum. Any things for open forum from the commission members? Nada? Okay, Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple quick announcements. Annual town meeting is to be held this Saturday, June 12th, starting at 9 a.m. It is recommended that people get there 15 minutes in advance to check in and get seated so that the town meeting can start at 9. There is a rain date for Sunday, June 13th. Encourage everyone to attend and participate in the public process. The other comment I have is that with the governor rescinding the emergency order, the commission's next meeting on June 23rd will be held in person at Town Hall in the second floor meeting room. So it'll look a lot different than this. And I've had a blast running these from my couch, but I'm also looking forward to being in person and having the discussions, not having to raise our hands and wait for people to recognize us. So those are my 2 primary comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do we have anything from open forum from the audience? Just raise your hand. What, Marilyn?
I just wanted to know how many people from our board will be at the town meeting, so we'll know who to look for when we open it.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
The only problem is if for some reason it gets moved into Sunday, I won't be there.
That's 2 of us, so I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Okay.
So just 4 of us will be there?
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
1,
Yeah,
2.
I'll be there on Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, Saturday. Okay. Jim, are you going to be there?
Not Saturday, but if it gets boosted to Sunday, I'll be there then.
Okay. It's rare not to see you there.
I know I
Okay.
haven't missed one in a long time.
No, I know.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't see anything from the audience. Let's move on to our first agenda item, which is a continuation of a public hearing and issue order of conditions for Eco Scout candidate Gotham Manu, and I believe he's there.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, yep, so if Matt would pull up this materials, I can talk about them. Okay, yeah. So I think the last time I presented to you, you asked me to create 3 different views: a top, a side, and a front. So I did that, and then I used Google Slideshow to create these. Note that these lines aren't drawn to scale, and this is a top view. So here's one without deck boards, and the one to the left, and then the one to the right is if deck boards were covering it. So these lines are in the one to the left are poles, as you can see, and when it says represented by line, and then there are kickboards at the end, and this I initially intended it for it to be 5 feet wide and 10 feet long, but after meeting with my licensed construction supervisor yesterday at the bid site, he was like, it should probably go to 12 feet, considering the areas that the water can get to when the water levels are faster, the water can get farther beyond the bank to bank. So he wanted it to be 12 feet. So I'll be working with him on that to construct a more formal design, but here's what I started with. And then the next. Okay, yep. So these 2 are handrails. They'll be placed on the top if you want to scroll back to the previous page. Yep, so they'll be placed on the top. Actually, you might want to see the side view before you. Yeah, so here's where the top is where the handrail will be placed, and then there were 4 vertical posts. And initially, I thought they should be 4 inch into 4 inch into 4 feet, but after my licensed construction supervisor suggested they should be 2 inch into 6 inch to provide support, and considering that the bridge should be a little off of the ground. And then here are my side rails. They're kind of like they'll be placed on the outside of the vertical posts, and then the deck boards, obviously, and then there will be the long rail placed underneath the deck boards on the exterior of the bridge. And then if you want to scroll down to the next page. So here's the front view of the bridge. So like the 2 inch into 10 inch into 4 foot deck board, as I showed in the first page, I believe, or the second one. And then the side rails, as I just talked about previously, and then the deck board, the deck board is where people will be walking on, and then the long rails on the exteriors of each side, and then the handrails and the vertical posts. So I forget what's then. I think they have something else on the next page. Oh, yeah, and then just my materials list. Yep, so that concludes my presentation. If I'm open to
So
questions.
are you gonna like do some of these up front and then lug them in and assemble the whole thing one site?
Wait, so you were saying like do some of these like constructed ahead of time, or wait?
Yeah, like the railings and the base and.
Yeah,
are you
so
yeah, go ahead.
I plan on doing that before I moved into the site. First, assembling it like all together to make sure I don't want there to be any issues assembling it while I'm on site. So I want to assemble it ahead of time, probably in my driveway or somewhere, and then or we'll disassemble it into like probably maybe the base and then the side parts, and then I'll probably disassemble the deck boards off to help reduce weight and to help make it easier to transport among a group of people into the bridge site.
Questions from the commission?
No, it looks great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Questions from the audience?
I was gonna ask Matt, so what is the Beltwell Brook? I never recalled that.
It's a tributary of Boutwell Brook. Boutwell Brook runs behind the Robinson School north towards Westford Academy, and it's just a tributary. The stream you're constructing the bridge over is a tributary of that.
Okay.
It's just to identify the location.
Yep, okay.
Okay, otherwise, are you good with the order conditions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the order conditions?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Margaret?
Yes.
Eric?
yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Noel?
Yeah.
Ann?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Margaret?
Yes.
Eric?
yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Matt, what's the full order, the full number?
Oh, 1764.
Thank you.
We did receive that today. Sorry.
Or else we wouldn't be closing it. Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a renovation project for Robinson School. This is a legal notice of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, Wetlands Non-Zoning Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 171. Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. via remote participation on the notice of intent application of the town of Westford for the renovation of the existing 5 tennis courts, construction of 3 new tennis courts, adjacent parking area, stormwater management, detention basin, associated sites improvements within 100 feet of a jurisdictional wetland at 33 Robinson Road. Assessors map 20, parcel 102. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us here.
If Arson, if you could raise your hand, I just want to make sure I have the right one of you as a panelist. Okay, so I got the wrong one. All right, Paul, if you want to go over the project.
Yeah, perfect. Again, thank you for having us all here today. I'll just give a brief summary. Myself, I'm Paul Fox, Director of Facilities for the town of Westford. With me today is Arson. He is representing Nezra Engineering. He is our primary engineer and designer of this project. Just as a brief overview, the current existing conditions at Robinson Elementary School for these 5 tennis courts are rapidly deteriorating and quite honestly are not playable any longer. That's what sparked this project to come into existence. This was sponsored by CPC for funding mechanism, and we're working with Newport Materials on potentially chiming in here with asphalt mitigation plan as well. So the proposed plan is to renovate those existing 5 tennis courts, to reconstruct them, as well as add on additional 3 tennis courts just north of the boundary. Additionally, we'll be doing a pathway to Robinson Elementary School, and as well as southern facing parking structure, which will be about 13 parking spaces. With that brief overview, I'd like to turn it over to Arson for further details on it. But again, thank you for all the support for this project.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. My name is Arson Hambard-Zumian with Nestor Engineering. I'm happy to discuss this project with you. Paul did a great introduction of the existing conditions. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site, that the tennis courts have just deteriorated significantly and are at their end of useful life. The proposed renovations would include removing the existing bituminous surface, removing some of the topsoil, bringing in base stone material, bringing up the level of the site for the new 5 courts, which will be slightly shifted north to allow for parking area off of Robinson Road. Additional 3 tennis courts further north with multi-purpose use. We plan to add pickleball courts, striping to them with the netting that will be brought by the individuals or provided at the time of use. And we're also providing a wall ball system or practice wall at the north side of it for additional use of the space. We will be providing ADA connectivity from the school, which currently does not exist, and new 13 parking spaces, 2 of which will be ADA parking spaces, one way in, one way out, with the school, with a bus drop off, not a school bus, but a team sport bus drop off during events. In terms of grading the site, well, the tennis courts will flow north to a trench drain. The runoff will be intercepted there in the trench drain, flow into a collector pipe that will promote infiltration of the runoff. Then it will enter a retention pond, which will then outflow to vegetated area that's approximately 30 feet away from the wetlands, and it will flow to the wetlands. There's a riprap outflow system design that will diffuse the flow and provide an even spread. The 3-court system will sheet flow to a swale, which will then go to a check dam, riprap check dam, which will further diffuse the flow, slow it down, allow it to pass through the vegetation and into the wetlands. The parking area to the south will flow into a bioretention area through a series of, over a stone diaphragm, then through a series of check dams into a catch basin, deep sump and hooded catch basin that will then overflow to the retention pond, which exits as I described previously. So we're providing multiple redundant treatments for the facility. The courts themselves are not exposed to any contaminants. There is no vehicular traffic, no potential for oils or gas or salting. So once installed and cured, there's going to be no contaminated or any issues coming off of them. So any treatment is typically above and beyond what normally occurs. The parking lot obviously will be used in a similar fashion, in a normal fashion as a parking area. So it is treated, provides more treatment of the runoff. It will likely not get as much use as most parking areas as it will be for the tennis courts that are open from dawn till dusk. I don't expect that they'll be used in the winter time, but I'm not sure, Paul. Maybe you could let us know if the tennis courts aren't being used. I don't see that the parking itself would be used.
No, I would agree with those comments.
As far as plantings, we provide multiple plantings in the bioretention area, general site plantings, site improvements. There is an existing sewer force main that we will relocate around the perimeter of the courts. That way, if there's ever any maintenance or any issue with the system, the courts themselves will not be disturbed, and the pipe will be accessible.
I want to ask you about the sewer main. So how far away from the wetland right now is the sewer main?
If we can, could we zoom in on that existing conditions?
Yep, I'll get there.
And where does the sewer main come from?
It comes from the school and it goes to the road, and I assume there's a pump station or a treatment station down the road. Right now it goes very close to the wetlands. I do not believe we're proposing to encroach any closer than it is now. At the pinch point, I think it's within the 25-foot buffer zone, so it looks like about approximately 20 feet away, if I was to estimate it.
The current sewer line, is that close to the wetland?
Yes, sir.
One thing this diagram, all these diagrams I found were missing or lacking was distances to the wetlands with the existing versus the proposed. Is there one diagram we can look at that shows existing, proposed, and the distances to wetlands?
I do not have that. I don't believe we have the buffer zone, the 25 and 100 shown, and that helps a bit in comparison. The tennis court itself, the 5-court system, the edge is exactly the same. It's only bumped up north slightly to accommodate for the parking. So we're not encroaching any closer to the wetlands there.
The three new tennis
The
courts
three
aren't
new
getting
ones
closer?
are new and they're bumped out, but they're outside of the 25-foot zone. They're at least 30 feet away.
Do you have a diagram that shows that someplace?
Yep, if we would go to the design, if we go to the layout again here, and if we can zoom into that region on the right side. There we go. So there's a 25-foot buffer zone. The triangles denote the wetland flags and the wetland line with the numbering, and then there's a 25-foot, and then there's the inner and outer riparian zones, as well as the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. And if
Any
we can go down
consideration given to putting those three new courts further to the west? How far away would they then be from the?
Sure. So initially, we evaluated multiple alternatives. We even had it a little bit closer to the wetlands. We had it further away. Unfortunately, it's taking away from recess area for the children. And when we discussed having it closer to the school and having recess on the other side, it wouldn't provide sufficient visibility and safety for the children. So we kind of compromised and found a medium where we're far enough from the wetlands, but yet we still leave some room for the kids.
Thank you for those comments, Arson. I was just going to add on to that when doing this design, we worked through a couple of different schematics and options, as Arson alluded to. But as part of these decisions, it was a combination of both the principal and assistant principal currently at Robinson Elementary School, as well as Jeff Bunyan, who is the athletic director, and a couple other people representing both tennis courts and pickleball courts that all wanted to have their say in this. The superintendent of the schools was also available for this project, so multiple perspectives we're trying to take into account when properly designing this to meet the needs of the best possible.
Had you had Matt involved from conservation as far as the distances when you were doing those evaluations?
No, sir. That's correct.
So I mean, I was brought in with kind of later on in the process, and as Arson mentioned, the 3 pickleball courts and the detention basin, I forget which, to the west of the property, that was closer to, that was within the 25-foot buffer. And that was something I was strongly encouraging Arson to look at, is to moving that further as far as he can back out and try and get that outside especially the 25-foot, but try to get that 30-foot that the commission typically holds for kind of grading.
Right.
And Jim, to echo your thoughts, I mean, I have a couple comments on the plan. I mean, and having the distances to the existing distances to wetlands of the nearest corner, I think would be helpful, along with the proposed. One other component, and Arson, I know we spoke about this, and when you included Boutwell Brook and the riverfront area, but looking at the most recent USGS maps from 2021, that portion of Boutwell Brook is categorized as intermittent. So it should only be subject to the 100-foot local bylaw, and not the Riverfront Act and 200 feet. And last,
Thank you for that. That's good news. I wasn't able to find the latest maps, but I appreciate
I'd be happy to share the viewer and the link. And
You know, what concerns me is we're adding the parking down below and 3 new tennis courts, and that just pushes these right up against the wetland area. You know, if you want to keep that parking lot area, why can't you move those 3 tennis courts farther over to the west? And how far away would the corner then be to the wetland?
Mm-hmm. I can measure it. I think the corner itself it has to be more than 40 feet away from the wetlands. I see the 25-foot buffer. I know the grading goes closer, but looking at that corner, I can do an updated plan showing you exact distances from those corners to the wetlands. We did shift it quite a bit. As I said, it was a back and forth in trying to accommodate the school's needs as well as keeping the environment in mind and trying to be sensitive to the resource areas. But I can certainly provide you dimensions and then we could discuss it further.
So this project essentially puts it from something on the order of 150 feet or 100 feet down to about 20 feet, which that's not in our interest.
Sure. There's no structure within, or at least the new ones are definitely, there is no actual structure within 30 feet. There is grading going to about 30 feet.
Where's that marking then?
Here, I'll highlight it for you. Those playing along.
So, yeah, we need to go back and look at the sewer main because you know, you're moving the sewer line. I see the current sewer line on this map. It goes under the tennis courts.
Mhm.
It's not over by the wetland. You're
But
moving
down
the
here.
sewer. You're moving the sewer main all the way around the tennis courts to within 25 feet of the wetland.
Yeah, why would we do that?
Why would we
Right.
do that? Our bylaw prohibits moving a sewer line within 100 feet of a wetland.
We're putting everything closer to the wetland here.
We don't,
I mean,
we
if
don't
we-
have a choice with the sewer main.
Yeah, especially with the sewer
Prohibited
line.
under the bylaw. Why do you have to move that why do you have to move that sewer main? Why can't you just leave it right where it is?
It's certainly something we can discuss and analyze. Should there ever be an issue with the sewer, you risk, having to damage a $500,000+ facility in terms of repairing the sewer.
But you don't understand. Have you read our bylaw? Our bylaw does not allow a sewer line to be placed within 100 feet of the wetland. There is an exception for force mains, but this sewer line's got nothing to do with the project.
This is
isn't
a force
feeding it.
main.
Well, what is it then?
It is a force main. It is
Yeah.
existing. On the corner of the existing tennis courts, it's less than 25 feet away currently. But I do understand your concerns, and I'm happy.
But you're taking this and you're moving it all the way around the 3 new tennis courts, bringing it, well within the 100-foot buffer, within 20 feet. You can't do this. This is prohibited by our bylaw. We can't approve this. It's in writing. It's a prohibited thing because it's got nothing to do with a new facility that you're putting in. You're just rerouting the main to get it outside underneath the tennis courts. This is a problem with our bylaw. It's very specific in our bylaw. The only time you can go within 100 feet of the wetland with a sewer. Right, Eric?
No, not only that, he's like, he's think of it as maximum feasible compliance, and his project is contrary to that. He's moving it closer to the resource area instead of further away. I mean, it's not something we would allow.
Okay, we can analyze that and come up with alternatives. I don't want to speak out of turn, Paul, but obviously that's something that I missed because I saw it within the buffer zone and at close proximity. I didn't catch that it would be an issue, but certainly I understand your concerns and we can address that.
The reason that was allowed to be placed there under our bylaw because it was feeding to a treatment facility when it was originally installed. Okay, and that's accepted under the bylaw. But you just want to move this to get it out underneath the tennis courts, and there's nothing in our bylaw that allows that for you to move that closer to the wetland.
Okay, to be revisited.
One other comment I had, Arson, on the plans, and I think it must have just come off from the iteration I saw prior to you filing, you don't have the 100-foot buffer shown to the vernal pool south of Robinson Road. And I remember seeing that on the plans originally. So if that could just get added back on.
Yes, I think I did that under the direction of our wetland consultant. And I'm not, as versed in it as you are and he is, but he mentioned something about there technically not being a buffer zone, but there is much more protection and resources to it. But I'm happy to add that. It's not an issue. I'll add it and then show it for clarity. I think at one point they'll merge the two buffer zones. I think
correct. Yes. Oh, yeah. I understand that. And just kind of the front of the tennis courts, or the portion of the tennis courts currently and proposed along Robinson Road, also would be within, I think, that 100-foot buffer.
Will do. And I just want to say that, we are happy to work with you. This is a town project with the town under your supervision. We're not trying to force anybody's hand here or anything like that. And that's a great input. We will certainly go back, revisit it, and come up with something better. I don't plan on being confrontational or have any kind of, issues towards the board. We're happy to oblige.
Okay, I mean, we're pointing out stuff that's, is prohibited under our current bylaw. And, in order for us to get this done, that we have to abide by what's in the bylaw.
Understood.
Okay? Okay. Any other questions from the commission on this? Any questions from the audience?
Excuse me, sorry, more for a point of clarification. I definitely understand the relocation of the drain, and that is something that obviously, if it's prohibited, we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to come back with a better presentation to this committee for what you suggested proposal will be on that. As far as the location of the northern courts, I know that there was some serious concern there. Likewise, there's also some serious concern for safety reasons from the school direction there. I think that we kind of came to a stalemate on this, and I really just want to fully understand exactly what the expectations are. That way we come back with a deliverable next meeting that is aligned. Is this a hard stopping point where we have to continue to push it forward, or is this still open for debate? Can I get a little more clarity from the committee on that line?
Peter, typically we would want them outside of the 30. It seems
Right.
like a portion is within the 25, or the grading from what I can see. I don't know if this particular area has been previously disturbed, or is this undisturbed right now?
So all of it is within either the existing tennis courts area or the grass field that's being used for athletics and recess. There is no vegetation. The structures themselves so the existing is within 25 feet on the 5 set of courts, just a little
But
bit on
the new proposed tennis courts, the 3 proposed tennis courts, that's going to be in an area that's currently grass and maintained?
Yes, and there is no grading within 25 feet. I believe there's no grading within 30 feet of the new ones, for the new ones. And if we can go to, Matt, if you don't mind going to the grading plan, and if we can just perhaps highlight the 25-foot edge there, and the darker lines obviously are grading, but there's 25-foot buffer zones right there where he's pointing out, line going down and around the retention basin.
Okay, and then closest point of the tennis courts is probably like 40?
Yes, that's my estimate, but I can get that information exactly for you.
Okay, some of that will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But my preference is to have those 3 northern tennis courts move towards the west, because we're trying to get as close as we can to 100 feet from the wetlands. We definitely wouldn't want any closer than say 30, 35 in that sort of distances. But the farther away you can get without interrupting your project too much, the better. I think the drainage area could stay attached with the three tennis courts, and if they move to the west, you'd move significantly further away from the wetlands. The reason you're so close is because you added the 3 tennis courts and the parking lot.
Right.
They're saying that, Jim, that it's because of safety issues. So,
Yes,
What
that is.
issues, the parking lot or what?
Sorry, both of those are for safety concerns. Right now, currently, when tennis court season or when tennis season is currently in play, Westford Academy students are coming over at 2:00, and teams from outside can be there as soon as 2:30. Meanwhile, Robinson Elementary School is still in active learning sessions. And additionally, sometimes they even have late recess outside. So buses and traffic is coming in here, and that was one of the first requests that was added to this project, was to take care of an additional parking site, and that's where we came out with those 13 parking spaces. Finally, the other piece that was vetted out, again, these tennis courts were previously shifted further to the east, pending Arson and Matt's conversation. We have moved them over already to try to accommodate it, but it does become a safety concern. During recess, these students are allowed free range of that field, and they've already tried to tuck behind the existing 5 tennis courts. We know they're going to do so here as well, and it becomes a safety concern from the principal's perspective and just the school in
I
general.
was losing that. What's the safety concern that causes the 3 tennis courts to be where they are?
The safety concern are the students that range from grades 1 through 3 during recess. There can be anywhere from 100 plus students running out there at any time. And if they tuck behind this, because it is all just maintained grass, they're free range to run behind these courts and not potentially run out of vision of supervision or run out of range of vision.
With the plan we're looking at right now, couldn't they do the exact same thing you're saying you're concerned about?
No, not so much, because it's tucked up so close.
Well, that's the problem, that it's so close, but there's still room. They could go around there and head over where the drainage pond is, right? And that's where you're trying to keep them out of?
If you scroll down, we don't have the problem as much right now, but it was a problem that was risen as we were having the conversation about that.
Yeah, I think currently the recess happens just past the parking area where there's like a sand pit right there, and grass. That's about, and then it starts to go up the hill further up to the north and west. And so it's trying to preserve some kind of a recess area and keep it visible. You know, if it was pushed west and then the green space was on the opposite side, then there's not enough visibility and supervision for the kids. I think that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I really find it hard to believe if you move that thing, 10 feet over, that it's going to create that much more of a safety.
Perhaps it would be helpful to have the school members at the next meeting so that they can voice their concerns, because we're basically trying to translate their comments to you.
Yeah.
I think the comment that Peter made was a pretty fair comment, that, an additional 10 feet, perhaps to the west, isn't really going to, create that much of a safety concern.
If you're concerned about it, change your fencing to keep the kids out of there.
Yeah, it's again a programmatic schooling, educational, fair-based perspective here, in which I unfortunately only represent the facilities needs. I will like to ask Kevin Ross, principal of Robinson Elementary School, attend next meeting to portray his thoughts and feelings about this, if that's okay and agreeable to.
So if he's concerned about the kids getting around the edge of those 3 northern courts, maybe you should have a proposal for some sort of fencing to block that area off. Right, because they can go around there now. They can go around there if these 3 courts were moved to the west. So you got the same situation, maybe to a lesser or greater degree. But if you have the problem, you have the problem, and you got to fix it somehow.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, we have to continue this. We can continue this to our next meeting on June 23rd. We already have like 4 things scheduled for 7:30. Since we're going back into live sessions. So let's move this to, let's say 8:10 on June 23rd. You have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Margaret?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
And Ann,
Yes.
and Peter, yes. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you for
you.
your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. This is a legal notice under Massachusetts, under Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, chapter 171. Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. via remote participation to consider requests for determination of applicability filed by Spalding Hill Estates LLC for the approximate 630-foot extension of a 12-inch water main, approximately 350 feet of which is within 100 feet of a jurisdictional wetland within the paved portion of Dunstable Road from 38 Dunstable Road to the proposed St. James Way. Okay, who's here?
Mark, you're muted.
Yep.
Mr. Slager? Mr. Slager, if you unmute yourself.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I have two screens and I was trying to figure out where it was. Good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering here on behalf of Spalding Hill Estates LLC. You may recall that the Spalding Hill subdivision was approved by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission last year. Part of that development requires a continuation or an extension of an existing 12-inch water main in Dunstable Road. Part of the Groton Road improvements performed by the town the last year or so included a 12-inch water main that was installed about 300 feet up Dunstable Road, and then it was dead-ended. The developer of the project has agreed to continue that 12-inch main up to the new road that's coming off of Dunstable Road called St. James Way and connect that water main into the subdivision. So it would be a looped water main through the subdivision when it gets constructed. So this will provide additional service to the residents on Dunstable Road and also improve water main service within the future development. There's approximately 360 feet of new water main going in, and a portion of it is, within the buffer zone, and some of it's even within the 50-foot no disturb. But all work is going to be performed within the paved layout of the roadway. So we're all, it's all within the roadway, and we are proposing some silt fence and the Filtrex silt socks with the silt fence at the edge of the roadway, just to prevent any runoff from getting in there. The wetland was delineated and approved as part of the notice of intent filing for the Spalding Hill Estates development. So those flags are still in place out there. So at this point, we're requesting a conditional negative determination so we can move forward with the work. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the commission on this?
When are they planning on proposing to do the work?
We don't know. The developer actually hasn't acquired the property yet. So there's some legal work that's going on behind the scenes right now to finalize all the details. I know the commission issued the order of conditions for the development about a year ago. And there's some conditions that have to be met.
So basically, you're going to open up a portion, put in the 12-inch main, and cover it. So there's, typically when we see these types of projects, and if we issue a conditional negative, we want to make fairly sure that whatever you're opening up during the day gets buttoned up, that evening, and things aren't that exposed. So, I didn't know if that's how you were proposing to do the work here.
Yes. And I'm sure the highway department or Public Works now would require that everything get covered up at the end of the night and paved.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
No.
Any questions from the audience? Don't see any raised hands. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve this as a conditional negative?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Peter, yes. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, Mark, thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Take care, Mark.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next public hearing for Hot Pond Association of the Town of Chelmsford. This is a legal notice under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act. Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171. Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. via remote participation on the notice of intent application of the Town of Chelmsford and the Hot Pond Association for the implementation of a aquatic plant management program to control invasive species growth using biological augmentation and treatment with US EPA MA state registered herbicides within a jurisdictional wetland. Land of the water bodies and waterways at Hot Pond. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, if I may, quickly, I'd like to disclose that I was previously employed by Solitude Lake Management, the company who filed this NOI. And if it be the pleasure of the commission, I'd be happy to recuse myself, but I wanted that on the record.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary.
Won't let you off that easy.
Yeah.
Can't hurt to ask.
Great.
Let's try.
Okay, gentlemen, who's here?
Hi, all. This is Kara Slawowski from Solitude Lake Management.
Okay.
And I am obviously representing the town of Chelmsford and the Hart Pond Association. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Hart Pond has been managed for a number of years now. This NOI filing is actually just kind of a continuation of their management. We recently refiled in Chelmsford as well at their request. And so, obviously felt that it was only necessary to refile in Westford as well. So as things stand currently, typically on an annual basis, Hart Pond is treated earlier in the season for a curly leaf pondweed population that is, scattered around the shoreline in various densities. And then sometimes later in the season, we conduct a second treatment using either sonar, which is the active ingredient is fluoridone, or another product, the active ingredient is flumioxazin, and those treatments are typically for the management of the fanwort growth that is also present within Hart Pond. So that management responsibilities-wise is, split between the town of Chelmsford and the Hart Pond Association, and we work closely with both of them to manage the pond. So happy to, run through. I apologize that I'm currently on the road and not yet home from my field day, so I don't have the NOI directly in front of me, but happy to, run through what we have included in there off the top of my head. But if anybody has any specific questions, we can tackle it that way as well.
So are there any major changes in this from what the previous NOI was?
I don't believe so. I think if anything, we have only included an additional 1 or 2 products because offhand, I'm not sure when the last filing in Westford was, but I don't know if flumioxazin had previously been included. That product was registered around 2014 for use in Massachusetts. It's a contact herbicide and again, to control fanwort, and the state has actually restricted use on it so that you can actually only use it in a quarter of the water body every 4 years. So you kind of have to rotate your areas around. And so when we have used that in the Chelmsford areas, we are limited to its use with that pattern. And then I think the other one we included that I'm not sure was in a previous filing is ClearCast, or the active ingredient is imazamox. And that would be something that is used as a foliar application for things like water chestnut or water lilies or any Phragmites growth that may be around the shoreline. But that is more of a contingent thing, just in case of any infestations that need to be managed.
Questions from the commission?
You did.
Noel.
Well,
So in the management plan, you had in there that you would hand weed these invasive species. Is that going to be the initial way that you guys do it? And then if that doesn't work, then use the herbicide?
No, so that hand pulling task that's kind of in there as an option is just something that we typically include for places like Hart Pond, because it is an appropriate strategy at times for certain species, and both curly leaf pondweed as well as fanwort would fall into an applicable category. But typically the density and the amount of growth that is currently in Hart Pond really doesn't make it the most efficient way to do that, not only from a true control standpoint, but as well as a financial standpoint. So we have it in there as an available tool in our toolbox to use in the event that we do have areas that are more appropriate for that, but it's not something we typically frequently do in Hart Pond.
Okay. I personally would like to see more of that initially happening. I understand that to hand weed something like that is very expensive and it's time consuming, but on the other hand, dumping herbicides and chemicals into the ecosystem that affect, I mean, they're poisonous to plants, and there's the animals that eat the plants, and then there's the animals that eat the animals that eat the plants, and so on and so forth. So I would rather see more of a maybe spending a little bit more upfront to manually remove all of those things than just initially starting with herbicides. That's my
Sure. I mean, I can definitely pass those recommendations along to the town and the association.
Thank you.
Margaret?
To follow up on Noel's comment, is the goal for using these herbicides really to reduce the plant population sufficiently that it maybe could be managed long-term with a less chemical approach?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question on Margaret's. Is there also education on so the people that live on the body of water as far as the phosphorus and the nitrogen that they're applying to their properties that flows into the water that causes all of these plants to flourish so much? Is there an education going on to educate people on the effects that all of the nutrients they're putting on their lawns has on the weeds and the invasives?
Yeah, sure. You have a very great point. I don't necessarily know offhand. I don't know all of the ongoings and involvement that the association has on that level with their homeowners, or what the town may or may not do for outreach. But it's a very valid point that we can recommend to them as well.
Noel, when they previously filed with us, the Hart Pond Association did, as a NAB, they had an education program for all the residents on the pond. And, but, once again, that would be nice to hear from them that they're continuing that education. So.
I had one last thing to ask about the copper sulfate for the algae bloom, that application. I was doing some research on copper sulfate, and the copper does not biodegrade, so it ends up collecting in the bottom of the pond, which ends up killing any chance for any other aquatic life to grow down there, which in turn causes more algae blooms to occur. So the copper sulfate, which is used to treat the algae blooms, consistently used, ended up causing more algae blooms in the future. Was that, were you aware of that? Or that?
I would say that is not our experience. And if you could share that source or wherever you gained that information with me, that would be awesome because I would love to read it as well. But what I can tell you is that many water bodies, not only through New England, but through New York as well, have been using copper sulfate for, tens of 20s of 30s of years. And I don't believe that that's anything we have experienced to date.
Okay, I would be happy to pass that along.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That's it.
Okay. Matt?
Kara, quick question. If you know off the top of your head, what's the percentage, what's the acreage of the water body that is in Westford? I know that in the narrative, you mentioned that it's a 92-acre water body, but it doesn't split out what the area is in Westford and Chelmsford.
Yeah, so again, I don't know off the top of my head either, and I can definitely probably get you that either later tonight or tomorrow morning. But just looking at it on a map or envisioning it on a map in my mind, my guess is probably somewhere maybe in the range of like 20 acres. So it's just the western, like most end that's in Westford. But I would say probably at least 75% of it falls into Chelmsford.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you could provide that information, it'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions from the audience in this application? Good. So Matt, will you be able to do a order of conditions for our next meeting on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to continue this to our June 23rd meeting at, let's say, 8:25?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Well?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, thanks very much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to our first discussion item, which is a grassy pond viewing platform, the final designs plans for Eagle Scout candidate Masterson. Ed, are you there? Is it Ed?
Derek.
Derek.
There he
I'm
is.
Derek, there we go.
Hello, well, my name is Derek Masterson. I'm designing a viewing platform at Grassy Pond. Next page, please. So this is everything we updated. I was told to make a more detailed design showing railings and elevation and concrete pillars that will be there. So I updated it, and this is a list of everything that we have updated in my design. We also met ADA rules for our ramp, and our fundraising started. Yeah. So next slide, please. So this is just a picture of where our platform will be. It will be to the right of this yellow post that is a gate. Yeah, next slide. So this is it's not exactly to scale on all of these diagrams, but this is what it will look like from a top-down view. We got the entryway, and here's the pillars as well. We have 9 pillars. And so the entryway, and it would be facing towards the pond, slightly offset, and the yellow gate. The entryway will actually be right up against the yellow gate. Next slide. So these are just measurements from the trees. It's a tree distance from the side, and these are standard wheelchair dimensions. Next slide. These are standard wheelchair dimensions for our platform. So we made it so that 2 wheelchairs could get on the platform with moving room. Next slide. And this is a diagram with the chairs, what it would look like. So next slide. So here we have a updated slide. On the first 3 pillars, there's no wood like block that you see on the other 6, and that is because as the ground goes down, we had to lower our platform just a little bit for the ramp, so it could be ADA compliant, and it will now be level, and the ramp is ADA compliant. Next slide, please. And this is what it looked like with joists, and our joist connection is right in the corner. Next slide. Yeah, and end caps as well will be around the edges. Next slide. So this is the decking. This is what it would look like with decking without railings. Although we do have the railings designed, it's not in this. So yeah. Next slide. And here's railing posts. It's not the full railings, but this is where the posts will be coming up for the railings. Next slide. So this is our railing design. We have a minimum height of 3 feet, and it's a typical railing section with 4x4 posts. Yeah. Next slide. So here you see the ramp is has a landing, and it starts under the ground and goes up. It is ADA compliant. Spent time talking about that. So it's an 8-inch. It's going to be connecting to the joist, or an 8-inch joist that goes right onto the decking. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is another view of what the ramp structure might look like. It's going to have 4 beams that connect onto the front or side, I guess, of the ramp or the deck. Next slide. So this is what the ramp width would look like if you're looking at it from front. So we have the railings, and the minimum height would be 48 inches. And these blue dots here are ADA railings that we will be mounting onto the ramp. Next slide. So these are construction phases that we have. This is just kind of planning of what our future steps will be. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are next steps we have to take. Next slide. So here is a reference to what the railings will look like. As you can see in this picture, there's 2 on the corner right there, and this is what we were planning to do on my deck here, as in this diagram to the top right. Next slide, please. So this is just a table for the joists, lengths and widths that we have, and the type of wood. I think the next 2 slides are just reference materials. And yeah, these are pictures, and the last slide is yeah. So this is just, it's about 15 feet from the gate to the tree, roughly 15 feet. And it's about 15 feet in between the 2 trees, and my deck will be about 10 feet. So that's my presentation. As I take questions.
Matt?
Derek, you mentioned on your first slide you've been having difficulty finding a construction supervisor, a CSL, to work with you on this project. whom have you reached out to in town? There are lots of builders working currently with the building department, and I can try and find some names in the next couple days of people you can reach out to discuss your project. They're all, I don't want to make any assumptions as to their availability, but I can certainly provide you with a list of names to contact and kind of put you in contact with to discuss your project as you start getting into the construction portions of it.
Yeah, so far I've only been in contact with you about the construction supervisors, but I am planning to talk to my school about it, about if any of my teachers have any construction supervisors from working when they were not at the school. But if you could get a list of...
You're at Neshoba Tech, I take it as?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, good to know. I'll poke around and find some names for you to also reach out to discuss your project.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Jim?
Derek, who did you speak with at the engineering town engineer or the building inspector?
So I emailed the engineer, and he just referred me to Mr. Fontaine. So I've been speaking with Mr. Fontaine primarily.
Okay, have you seen the diagram with the pillars you've got set in there and the attachment for the ramp to the deck?
Yes, he has.
He was okay with all those?
Yeah, he
okay.
He said it was good, and I just need a.
He's got to get a building permit, Jim. That's why he needs the construction guy.
Yeah,
so
that's going to be that's going to be a lot of concrete in those nine pillars. They're going to be
9 pillars is a lot. He's right.
It's going to be a real lot of concrete. It's going to be tough digging the holes in that area where it's loaded with roots and the trees.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I guess just a vote to approve him to go forward with this project. I mean, this isn't a public hearing, so. Marilyn?
Just gonna make a motion that we have this vote to approve it.
Okay. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of the project? Margaret?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
And Ian? And Peter, yes. Just, keep in contact with Matt, and especially when you get to the point where you're going to start construction, okay?
Okay.
All right, you're good to go.
Thank you, Derek.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thanks very much. Great project. Okay, we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is, again, Grassy Pond, a request to hold storybook walk, August 6th to the 20th.
Who's here?
Miss Matthews, you're unmuted.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hi. So my name's Linda Jensen, and I'm representing First Connections. We're a state-funded agency that serves all families in Westford and 10 other towns. And one of the projects we were asking about doing this summer would be to set up a story walk at Grassy Pond, which would be kind of what is pictured here. And the walk would go around the pond with a book about starting kindergarten, and we would put it up for 2 weeks in August. We chose this location just because it's a short, family-friendly walking area with a parking lot, which is always helpful. And I wondered if anybody had any questions about that, doing something like that. I don't know if it's ever been done there before.
I don't think so, but
I don't think so.
sounds like a good program to me.
I have no issues with it.
I love this idea. I've seen this before up in New Hampshire. There's a Pooh Bear walk where there's the different characters, and like there's Eeyore's house, and like there's all these, like a little Storybook walk with Winnie the Pooh. And I would love to see something like this in Westford. I have a 2-year-old that would love this. So I'm really excited.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It would just be temporary. We would take it up and put it down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, motion approved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Noel.
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and Peter, yes. All right, thanks very much. Sounds like a nice program.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
good night.
Good night.
Okay, our next discussion item is Stony Brook Conservation Area Improved Lease Signage, and this is coming from Matt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The animal control officer, or one of the animal control officers in town, Dan Hurd, stopped in a couple weeks ago. And in his email, he's been doing patrols up at East Boston Camp, Stony Brook Conservation Area and East Boston camps for about an hour every day he's on. And he's noticed that the signage at East Boston camps, or he's, I forget what it's 35 off leash and 10 on leash. So he's encountering about 12 dogs off leash and about 3 on per day. And he is requesting we put up some better signage that explicitly states Carol's little small dog with the 2-2 signs. I don't think are conveying the point enough. And I've attached a couple signs in the meeting material, in the meeting packet for 2 of them Dan provided. This was the sign I had researched and was contemplating. It's, I think, 10 by, I think 10 by 14, 10 by 15, made of aluminum. And the thought was to put them up along the, at the entryway, down off of Depot Street. Additionally, probably put another one up behind the school that's escaping me at the north end of the property. Yeah, of course. And then also, I think he mentioned the Emmett Conservation Area as well. So I would like to put up a couple of these signs. They certainly, I think, more clearly convey the rules of the town, where they're with the town's under the town's bylaw, the dogs are required to be on leash. There isn't any off leash approved areas. So that's the gist of this request.
How about we take down some of the, if there's signs up there that you don't like, how about for each one of the new ones we're putting up, we take down at least one old one?
Yes, I mean, I was going to take down all of the little dogs with tutus. Those are all coming down, and we can.
How many are we taking down and how many are we putting up?
Well, so I don't think there are any. I have to find a better term than little dog with tutu signs, because it sounds ridiculous every time I say it. I don't think there are any of those at the Emmett Conservation Area. So. I mean,
Right.
Yeah. So I was going to put one up off of Texas Road, one off of Trailside.
Yep. That would be
At
fine.
those 2 parking areas, and then also But up at the Stony Brook Conservation Area and East Boston camps, I will gladly do a 1-for-1, if not a better ratio of taking down all those and making sure we get better signage up regarding clearer signage up regarding the leash laws in town.
Okay, and just for everyone's info, the leash law does have an exception where dogs, it doesn't specifically say the dog has to be on a leash. I know the town council has interpreted it that way, but the town council also ignored the part of the law that talks about if the dog is being trained for hunting purposes, or I don't know if there's any other purposes. I know that's in there. They don't have to be on a leash at that point. So there's something about control of the animal. The town council has interpreted that as being the dog should be on a leash, but there are exceptions for hunting training, I guess. So I think the sign that you had is generic enough. You know, dogs should be on leashes, and please clean up after your pets. We don't have a pooper scooper law, but that's a nice please statement there. So if we can take down as many signs as we're putting up, or even a couple more, that would be great.
Marilyn?
We don't have any fines for people who misuse this, do we?
Yes. They're not, I think the first.
So there is an order. You know,
Yeah,
like-
there it progressively. I want to say off the top of my head, it's 5, 10, or 5, 15, 45, 5, 15,
Where is
50.
that posted? Where is that posted? Anywhere?
I'll ask. I'll get that for the commission.
And then-
Isn't that just a general rule in the bylaws for bylaw violations?
I'll speak with the animal control officer to get the specific citation for the commission's next meeting.
Yep.
I don't think I've heard of any violations actually being issued in the last 25 years that we've owned the property.
No, he's been when he stopped in to discuss this initially. He said he was starting to issue the tickets to repeat offenders who he regularly had been encountering.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
So
good way of doing it. I think the word will get
Yeah,
around that way too.
He's finding them, Jim, under that bylaw, not anything to do with us. You get what I mean?
Okay.
So that's a
Okay,
separate
that's
town.
good. That's good. We're not going to go in there and enforce it.
No. Marilyn?
One other piece, when we get this rolling, you know, when we've done the changes, et cetera, you know how Jody puts out her newsletter to the town? I think we ought to have something in it that talks about it. So we bring it to the public and where everybody gets to see that. Just a little blurb, just like the, Board of Health or anybody else that puts in notices so that we are making people aware, and maybe also on the webpage.
Okay, I can do that.
And also, cleaning up after your pet. I know that mostly pertains to dogs, but there also are horses that are using some of these trails. So maybe adding in that cleaning up a much larger dropping would also be appreciated.
I'll look to see what sign. There were a couple other iterations of this sign that didn't have, please clean up, droppings, or there was other iterations. I'll see what's available to make sure we encapsulate all droppings.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, you all set, Matt, then?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Dayfield Community Garden, request to manually remove poison ivy and garlic mustard.
So I attended the Agricultural Commission's meeting on Monday night, and what's been found is there's a lot of poison ivy growing in the sitting area associated with the community garden, and there's also poison ivy now growing on the path to their porta potty. So they want to treat it. The garlic mustard is not part of this discussion because that's something they feel they can handle by themselves. But they found a woman, let me get the text up. So they have found Susan Falvey Laughlin from Newton, who actually will go in and hand remove the poison ivy and then take care of the roots, treat the ground with a non-chemical herbicide and bag up the poison ivy so that it dries out so that she can deal with it effectively as opposed to dealing with it topically. She looked at the area that they talked about, and she thinks it's about 4 to 5 hours work. She charges $50 an hour, which the community garden would like to pay for. Well, they said they would pay for it, and so they made a motion to hire Susan Falvey Laughlin to deal with the poison ivy in the sitting area and on the path to the porta potty. She'll remove the poison ivy vegetation, dig up the roots, bag up vegetation and roots in plastic bags and tie them closed, spray the holes and ground where vegetation was removed with vinegar or non-chemical herbicide, and the estimated cost for the work is between $200 and $250. And where it's under where the property is under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission, they need our approval as well to hire this person to do the work.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. Motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Love it.
Second.
Have a second?
Jim?
Okay, all in favor? Margaret?
Aye.
Eric?
Yes.
Jim?
Yeah.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. Okay, Matt, conservation land, cutting and trimming of 2 mature oak trees that Jim noticed.
Yes, so Jim, Jim, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I'd taken a walk down a street, one street over from where I live on Sycamore Road. And right where Sycamore Road changes into Salem Street, there's a very small piece of land that's under our care and custody. When I was going by there, there was a Westford Town Highway Department truck and a private tree cutter that were there, and they had just cut down a mature oak tree. It was probably 1.5 feet, 2 feet in diameter, and that I believe is on that conservation land. And there's another tree a little bit farther away that might be on the border that I don't know for certain whether it's on the property or not. I don't know why they were cut down. These trees were not, they're not power lines or utility lines that go directly over where the trees are. They're sort of on the opposite side of the street where the wires are. So I'm not sure what was going on, how it got cut, and how come we didn't know about it. And given that they've already been cut, I think we ought to be either putting in, having whoever it was put in a few trees as replacements.
So I spoke with the Director of Public Works, Steve Cronin, regarding this, and he was saying that they were within the right of way of the Sycamore Street Road. And they had been determined to be diseased and dying. So that's why they were removed, and they were considered a hazard. I'll gladly reach back out to him and try to get, some trees planted, some vegetation trees planted in something replanted in that area, and to try and revegetate it, because it is a very thin, small parcel, but I think having it vegetated is certainly desirable and can limit encroachment, any potential encroachment.
Yeah, it's starting to look more and more like an extension of a lawn and a parking area there. And I don't know why the tree came down. Looking at the stump that was cut, one of them looks like it has had a little rot in it, but the other one of them does not. And the fact that it was our property under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission and we heard nothing about it, we should still hear about it, even if there's, if the Highway Department says it's in there, if they're both not in the right of way. one of them at least is on our property, and not even hearing about it and just happen to see it by accident isn't a good thing.
Yep, Jim, I'll make sure to pass that along to Director DPW.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, request for a certificate of compliance with Croy, 20 Village Road, 334-1736. Is that good to go?
Yes, I recommend, Sierra and I were out, did the site visit, everything's stabilized. She has a good little garden plot next to it. And she has recently brought in a beehive. So I think the plantings that she did do kind of on the tiered area behind the deck and the three-seasoned room. Those are going to be some busy bees. So I recommend the commission issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay,
Motion to that effect?
so moved.
Second,
All in favor, Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes,
Noel?
Yes.
And Ann?
Yes.
Okay. Minutes from our May 12th meeting. Anybody have changes, corrections, additions, subtractions? Nothing?
Look good.
Look good as usual.
Thank you.
Wow.
batting 100%.
I'll say. Nice job.
Good job, minutes taker. Keep it up.
Yeah. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 12th, 2021?
Second,
All in favor, Margaret,
Aye.
Eric,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes,
Noel?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And Peter, yes. So just one last thing. If town meeting does get moved to Sunday for some reason, who can go on Sunday?
I can go on
Eric?
Sunday.
Eric, Jim? Okay, so there's plenty
only
of
in
you.
the morning, but I
Yeah,
couldn't the whole
You'll
day.
have a quorum.
Okay, Matt, you won't be there though, right?
I will not be there. I have a wedding down the Cape.
Okay.
I can tell you which one I'd rather be attending.
So will you send Eric,
Okay.
will you send Eric those notes you sent me from the town moderator just in case?
Yes, I will. Thank you. I'll make
Okay.
a note of that.
Because I won't be there on Sunday.
Yep.
All right.
Just to coordinate for tomorrow, I'm actually out of the office at a continuing education seminar. Sierra will be available with things to sign. So typical
Okay.
times.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock outdoors?
Sarah, is 12 work for you, Sierra?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, I'll come in.
Excellent.
I won't be able to sign tomorrow.
Okay,
Great.
it's all right.
I'll be able to make it somewhere between 12 and 12:30 or so, but if Marilyn's okay at noon, then I should be okay at 12:30, but I'll be there too to sign.
Okay.
Okay. So one last thing, we got to reschedule Chris's site visit.
I think the beginning of next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right now looks to have some much fairer weather than currently is outside. That's my initial thoughts, but I'm open to working with the commission.
Monday or Tuesday, you guys? Either day can work for anybody? No?
But, you can do it that way.
I
What
can
did
do
you
it
say,
Monday.
Marilyn? Monday? Margaret, yeah.
So
Okay.
Monday to Wednesday of next week doesn't work for me, but, I think it's important to get out there.
Yeah. See what's going on. So Monday, 4 o'clock?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can do that.
Okay, Monday at 4.
I'll reach out to the property owner and let him know.
Okay, great. I think that's it. Anything else?
Look forward to being back in person with all y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it'll be
really,
great.
that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
it'd be nice, yeah.
Be nice.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor of Margaret,
Yes.
Eric,
yes.
Jim,
Yes, good night.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Noel?
Yes.
Ian,
Yes.
and Peter, yes. Okay, you guys.
Good night, everybody. Have a
Yeah.
good vacation.
Good night.
Yes, have a
See you
meeting.
Saturday, most of you.
See you Saturday.
Yep. Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.